All right, we are on section 7.6, graphing systems of linear inequalities. And what that means to us is that we're going to have two lines that we're going to have to graph, and we're going to have two shadings along the way. So we're going to start out with y is less than 3x, and y is greater than or equal to negative 2x plus 1. We're going to graph the system. Remember that when you're graphing, you have to graph the y-intercept and then the slope. I want you to take a moment and graph that top inequality, y is less than 3x, and then I'm going to ask someone to come up here and do that for us as well. As you can see, Ben's line up here goes through the y-intercept of 0, has a slope of 3. That means we go up 3 to the right 1, up 3 to the right 1, and he drew a dashed line through the points because it's a less than. Now, in your head, think about, is that going to be shaded above that line or below that line? I want you to talk to your partner for just a second to determine which way it is. Do you have a volunteer to express what they think, above or below? What do you say, Taylor? Below. Below that line. Now, I want you just to take your pen for a moment, and I just want you to draw some little arrows that show below the line. I don't want to do any shading yet. Just little arrows say, hey, we're going to go below the line. Now, we're going to graph the other line. The y is greater than or equal to negative 2x plus 1. If you have not graphed that one on your paper yet, would you please do so? And I'm going to need a volunteer who hasn't been up here yet in order to come up and graph for me. On the board, Jordan has graphed the line so that it's a solid line going through a positive 1 for the y-intercept and then down 2 to the right 1, down 2 to the right 1. When you look at this line, talk to your neighbor real quick and decide up or down shading. Talk to your neighbor. Okay, do I have a volunteer for a consensus of where we're going, Shelby? Above, so take that little pen and say, I'm going above this line. And for the sake of argument here, I'm going to extend your line a little bit here, Jordan, okay? So we can see that a little more. So you can see that we've got little shadings where it's like, okay, I'm above this line and I'm below this other one. The deal is, it's got to be the intersection of those two shadings. So where do the arrows point in the same place? We should be looking at the section that goes along here. This section right here should be what we get shaded. Okay. Do not shade above the solid line up on the top there and below the dashed line down on the y-axis, because those aren't shaded by both areas. We have to look at what's being shaded by both areas. Any questions about that so far? Does that make sense? Everybody's okay with that? Kind of takes what we did in chapter 6, section 6.7, where we graphed one line and shaded. Now we're putting two lines together. Any point in this shaded area, any point, is a solution to the inequality system. Any point in the shaded area. This is what it looked like when I did it last year. So, same thing that you guys just had. Do this one, please. There are 3 inequalities up here. Okay, you graph all 3. Put your little arrows where they need to go. Tell yourself, where do I need to shade? Right now, we have y is greater than y is greater than or equal to 0. John, I got to move your arrows. Is greater than going to be less underneath the line?
Oh,
Needs to be up above the line, doesn't it? Yeah. And we have x is greater than negative 3. That's our dash line that goes vertically here with the arrows going to the right. And Angela's going to do the other line for us. Okay. With the line that Angela just graphed, she did slope intercept. If you look at 3y is less than or equal to 6 minus 2x and divide everybody by 3, we're going to have y is less than or equal to 2 minus 2/3 x. Her y-intercept's at 2. She went up 2 to the left 3. That's one way to graph it. Anybody remember the other way you could graph? Slope-intercept was great. Jordan? The x-intercept and the y-intercept. When you look at this, you have your 2x plus 3y is less than or equal to 6. Put a 0 in for your x. You find out that y is 2. On 2x plus 3y is less than or equal to 6. Get rid of your y by putting a 0 in, and you find your x is 3. Those are the two dots that Angela has on the board too. And then you can draw your line through those two. It works really good for story problems to use x-intercept and y-intercept. Jordan?
If you like have the equations, could you just look at that and know to shade that spot because, or like
To shade below?
couldn't you just like look at it and know to shade it between lines? Because that's what I don't know.
Not necessarily. I will tell you that on problems that you're going to be doing for homework, not always is it, the big spot. It might be a little section that you wouldn't expect it to be. Okay? Look where your arrows are going. For us up here, yeah, we're going above this line, and we're going to the right of this line, and below here, we're going into that triangle, aren't we? So we're going to shade just this triangle right in there. Shade nicely, don't scratch. Okay, shade nicely. All of your pencils are capable of shading nicely. They don't scratch. But that's all that should be shaded. Are we okay?
Yeah.
Did you finally get it?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll find out. We'll see once here. This was mine last year, so we've got the same idea going on. Now I have a system up here, and I need to know what the inequalities are. So you have to write the inequalities. I'm going to have you talk to your partner on this one. Come up with it together. Let's come back to the front here. I think some of you are having some difficulty. First of all, there are only two lines up here. One of the lines is a vertical line right here, and the other line is a diagonal right here. When you do the diagonal line and you're writing in y equals mx plus b, what are the two things that you need in order to write a line? Jack? Slope and the y-intercept. So look at where it crosses the y-axis and then determine what the slope is to another point that you can actually tell what the coordinate is. And you're going to be writing down your y equals mx plus b, and you have to decide whether you're going to use greater, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, based on the shading, based on solid and dashed. Okay? So then the other line is what kind of a line? Vertical or horizontal? Vertical. And vertical lines are always which? X or Y? I heard both answers. Uh-oh. It's really X. Vertical lines are always X equals. And where is it crossing the X-axis? At 3. So we're going to have X and 3. And we have to determine whether it's solid or dashed and shaded which direction. So I'm going to let you talk to your partner a little bit more now with that information. All right. I would like somebody to tell me on the X and the 3, what are we going to put in there for a symbol? On the X and the 3, what are we going to put in? Kyle? Less than or equal to, definitely, because it's being shaded to the left, so it's less. It's solid, so it's or equal to. Awesome. Now the other one, what did we come up with for our, let's see, we need M, and we need the B, and we need to know what the other thing is here too. So, Jack, give me one thing. 1/2 of X, so you came up with the slope to be 1/2. Okay, what's the y-intercept? Jordan? -1, so we're going to go -1. And now we have to decide on the greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. What are we thinking on that? Ellie? Greater than. It's a dashed line, so we don't want or equal to. And it's shaded above. Okay? There are your two inequalities. You need to be able to write inequalities for me from a graph. When it's a diagonal line, you need the slope and the y-intercept, and you have to decide which inequality sign to put in. When it's a vertical line, it's x. When it's a horizontal line, it's y. Nathan?
I don't believe it's 1/2 x.
You don't. What do you think?
2/3.
2/3. Oh, nice correction there. I'll agree with you, Nathan. 2/3. Let's put a 2/3 up there. Up 2 to the right 3. Up 2 to the right 3. I'll agree with you, Nathan. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? All right. The last thing that we have to do here, absolutely nothing. We're done.